My wife, Sarah, is a saint. I mean, truly, she's the kind of person who volunteers at animal shelters, bakes cookies for the entire neighborhood, and genuinely tries to see the best in everyone. Me? I'm less saintly. Let's just say I have a lower tolerance for blatant stupidity and maliciousness. Which is why, for years, I'd bitten my tongue dealing with our WA president, Dale. Dale wasn't just a pain, he was a walking, talking, polo shirt wearing embodiment of bureaucratic tyranny. He reveled in his minuscule power, enforcing the WA rules with the zeal of a zealous inquisitor. Lawn height, millimeter perfect, or you got a warning. Trash cans visible from the street for even a second? Prepare for a fine, and God forbid your house wasn't painted in one of the 3 approved shades of beige. Sarah always pleaded with me to ignore him, to not let him get under my skin. It's just not worth it, honey, she'd say. And she was right, usually. But Dale had a way of poking, needling, and pushing until I was ready to explode. Our breaking point, however, wasn't about lawn maintenance or trash cans. It was about tomatoes. Specifically, tomato plants. Sarah has a green thumb. Not a casual green thumb, a botanical wizard-level green thumb. Our backyard was a vibrant oasis, overflowing with flowers, herbs, and, yes, tomatoes. She grew everything from cherry tomatoes to beefsteaks, each variety bursting with flavor. She even had a competition with a neighbor for who can grow the largest tomato. The WA rules stated explicitly that vegetable gardens were allowed, provided they were neatly maintained and aesthetically pleasing. Sarah's garden was both. It was meticulously organized, weeded regularly, and frankly, looked better than half the lawns in the neighborhood. But Dale didn't care. He hated Sarah's garden. He hated the splash of color it added to our beige-dominated street. He hated the fact that it was thriving and vibrant, while his own sad patch of grass was perpetually struggling. He started small. First, he sent us a warning about excessive foliage. Sarah, bless her heart, trimmed back some leaves, even though it wasn't necessary. Then came the complaints about attracting unwanted pests. She put up netting and introduced beneficial insects. Each time, she complied, hoping to appease him. But Dale wouldn't let up. He eventually sent us a letter demanding we remove the tomato plants altogether, claiming they violated the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood. That's when I lost it. I went to the WA meeting, armed with photographs, soil samples, and a level of righteous fury I hadn't felt since that time the cable company charged me for a premium channel I never ordered. I presented my case, calmly and rationally, at first. I pointed out that the rules specifically allowed vegetable gardens, that Sarah's garden was immaculately maintained, and that Dale's complaints were baseless and petty. I even brought along a basket of ripe tomatoes for the other WA members to sample. But Dale just smirked. He claimed the tomatoes were unsightly and detracted from property values. He even brought up a completely unrelated incident from 3 years ago when our dog supposedly trespassed on his lawn. The dog was on a leash, for the record. The other WA members, mostly spineless individuals who feared Dale's wrath, sided with him. They voted to uphold his demand, remove the tomato plants or face a hefty fine. That's when I decided to wage war. Sarah, being the amazing woman she is, tried to talk me out of it. Don't do anything rash, honey, she pleaded. It's just tomatoes. But it wasn't just about tomatoes anymore. It was about principle. It was about standing up to a bully. And it was about teaching Dale a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. I started small. I filed complaints about Dale's own violations of the WA rules, his slightly overgrown hedges, his cracked driveway, his faded American flag. I documented everything meticulously, taking photographs and recording dates and times. But that wasn't enough. I needed something more impactful. Something that would truly hit him where it hurt. That's when I remembered Dale's annual garden party. He hosted it every summer, showcasing his pathetic attempt at a manicured lawn and his collection of plastic gnomes. It was his chance to bask in the admiration of his fellow WA members and reaffirm his position as the neighborhood's self-appointed arbiter of taste. The party was in 2 weeks. And I had a plan. I started by contacting a local tomato farm. I explained my situation and asked if they could provide me with a large quantity of overripe, near-rotten tomatoes, the kind that were too far gone to be sold. They were happy to oblige. Next, I ordered a commercial-grade pressure washer. It was an expensive investment, but I knew it would be crucial for executing my plan. Finally, I waited. The day of the garden party dawned bright and sunny. Dale, looking smug in his khaki shorts and floral shirt, greeted his guests with a forced smile. As dusk approached, I put my plan into action. I waited until most of the guests were gathered in Dale's backyard, sipping lemonade and admiring his plastic gnomes. Then, under the cover of the growing darkness, I positioned myself on the roof of my house, overlooking his yard. I carefully loaded the pressure washer with the overripe tomatoes, which I had pureed into a thick, chunky paste. The stench was almost unbearable, but I pressed on, fueled by righteous anger and the sweet taste of impending revenge. I took a deep breath, aimed the pressure washer, and pulled the trigger. A torrent of tomato paste erupted from the nozzle, arcing through the air and raining down on Dale's unsuspecting guests. People screamed, glasses shattered, and plastic gnomes were coated in a thick layer of red goo. Dale, standing directly beneath the deluge, was completely drenched. His floral shirt was now a horrifying mess, his khaki shorts were stained a permanent shade of red, and his smug expression was replaced with a look of pure, unadulterated horror. The chaos was glorious. I unleashed the entire tank of tomato paste, ensuring that every square inch of Dale's backyard was covered in a thick, sticky mess. Then, I quietly packed up my equipment and slipped back inside my house, leaving the scene of the crime to unfold. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. News of the tomato massacre had spread like wildfire. Dale, humiliated and furious, called the police. They interviewed me, of course, but I played dumb. I claimed I had no idea what had happened and suggested they check for any suspicious teenagers in the area. The police investigation went nowhere. There was no evidence linking me to the crime, and Dale had no witnesses who could positively identify me. In the end, Dale was left to clean up the mess himself. It took him days to power wash his yard, his house, and his precious plastic gnomes. The stench of rotting tomatoes lingered in the air for weeks. And Sarah? She was surprisingly supportive. While she didn't condone my actions, she couldn't help but admit that Dale had gotten what he deserved. The best part? Dale resigned as WA president a few weeks later. He couldn't face the ridicule and shame any longer. He moved to a different neighborhood shortly after. As for our tomato plants, they thrived. We even won the neighborhood tomato growing competition that year. And every time I looked at our vibrant, flourishing garden, I smiled, knowing that I had finally won the war against Dale, the tyrannical WA president who dared to mess with my wife's tomatoes. It was a victory that tasted even sweeter than the ripest, juiciest beefsteak. Now, whenever someone mentions tomato paste, I can't help but grin.